all 3 to 3.5 year payback. As soon as I show the numbers for these projects to the building owner and the tenant, they fight over who gets to make the investment in the building because they both want the return on investment. There are 600,000 commercial buildings in California. How many of them are zero net energy? Very few. Huge opportunity there. Solar emergency microgrids. So that's also where you'd have energy efficiency, solar, EV charging, monitoring communications and controls. So if there's a blackout, they can island, PG is rolling the blackouts through the state. They can island from the grid and still function. Every one of the 345 hospitals in California, every police station, every fire station, every K through 12 school should have a solar emergency microgrid. The schools, because they could become an emergency response center, a community shelter, a real community asset. Building deconstruction, I love the story. In Portland in 2016, they passed an ordinance saying, if you're going to tear down a house that was built before 1916, you need to deconstruct it instead of demolish it. So many hundreds of houses a year were coming down that were old Victorians, and it's a lot cheaper to just smash a house with big equipment, push it over into a dumpster, and haul it off to the landfill. But the city said, you're throwing away solid oak wood flooring. You're throwing away wooden banisters, kitchen cabinets, clawfoot tubs, porcelain sinks. For goodness sake, here's $2,500 per project per year, for 1 year, to pay for the cost differential between deconstructing versus demolish. And then you also didn't have the negative externality of the house being smashed, demolished, where the dust would just spread out throughout the neighborhood. And old houses, they may have lead paint, they may have mercury, asbestos, all that dust being spread through the neighborhood. As a result of the city of Portland creating this ordinance, there were 2 new deconstruction firms started up. They did a training for 14 people on how to do deconstruction. The training was over 3 days on a long weekend, and then people got experience on the job, trying out what they had learned. They trained 2 people who had just been released from prison, 7 people who had been homeless, and the rest who were entry-level skills. And these 14 people now had jobs. So because of this ordinance and the $2,500 per project, they created a whole new industry in the city of Portland. In terms of recycled content product manufacturers, I would love to see recyclable materials handled regionally. Stockton just had an economic development report done, and it said that their major industries were vulnerable to automation. They already don't have enough jobs. Their unemployment rates are already pretty high. You probably know their young mayor, Michael Tubbs, has been experimenting with universal basic income, giving random people, choosing people randomly throughout the city and giving them $500 a month for 18 months. So that's great that they're studying that. Wouldn't it be great if we created jobs though? So I did a calculation in the city of Fremont where my husband and I have a house. If you took all the recyclables for the city of Fremont, 230,000 people, take all the cardboard, mixed paper, plastics 1 and 2, and create recycling jobs for that material in Stockton, you'd create 145 jobs, turning them into new products. Again, I just think there's so many opportunities, and that's just the private sector. Can I answer your question? Yeah.
I was just curious on the previous slide, or even on any of these slides, if one has to choose, number one, who's going to pay for the infrastructure, the capital investment to create these companies. I mean, it's like you think of Silicon Valley, they have venture capitalists for a tech company, but these are not your typical tech ventures. So who is going to fund these opportunities? And then how do you pay for the employees? Is the state or the government is going to subsidize? That's one thing. And then in the end product, is it going to be cheaper than whatever the alternatives are? Because if it's not, people aren't going to be incentivized to do this unless they're very much into green. So they're going to do it for the benefits of green, but if they don't really care, a lot of people don't care, at least at this point, they're going to look at it from a monetary perspective of what's cheaper. So how are a lot of these things going to get executed from a financial perspective?
I wasn't going to talk about finance. I have a whole chapter about financing this and examples of how these different kinds of companies got funding, whether it's bootstrapping. One of the guys who started a building deconstruction firm in Portland, he went to a bank to borrow $10,000 to buy a used truck and tools and workman's comp, and they said, you know, interest is going to be $120 a month. And he said, you know what, I got $10,000 in savings, I'm just going to bootstrap myself. And now he's selling $23,000 a month of wood out of a warehouse. So there are crowdfunding, there is private equity, there's DPO, what am I forgetting? Direct public offering, line of credit. There are all kinds of different financing options to get a small business up and running. And then there's cost savings that are realized, like the commercial buildings. They're saving a lot. Their energy bill went from $10,000 a month to zero. So it's mainly cost savings that are going to pay back. But there are a lot of finance options besides just banks and venture capitalists. So, great question. I'd love to come back and do a whole other talk about that.
That's how you broke this apart, though, right? These were the ones where the private sector has an opportunity to make money. The next one is going to be if it was less profit.
Right, a 3-year payback. I mean, what is that ROI? It's pretty sweet, right? It's better than you're getting in your savings account. Yeah, but great question. It's not just philanthropy. This is going to result in cost savings.
What is mobility as a service? What is mobility as a service?
Yeah, mobility as a service. So this is there are actually quite a few people working on this, but no one's like cracked it yet. So that's where you would say, I'm in Palo Alto and I need to get to Berkeley. How can I get there the fastest and the cheapest way? And then it calculates and stitches it all together, making it seamless for you. And then you can just click on the option you like, and then it pays for all the different links. So in Palo Alto, we have to take the Caltrain to the BART, and then maybe take a Lyft or a bus, or take my electric scooter. It's stitching it together to make the process of technology and transit more seamless and easier. No one's quite cracked it yet. We have Google Maps. It gives you some information. It could be easier. Yes, one more question, and I'll get back.
Well, doesn't Google Maps do that already?
It does, but not as well as it could.
Well, I agree there.
Like, they're working on it. Like, it's just not quite there yet, and it doesn't pay for it for you. So again, I know a lot of people working on it. It hasn't been done yet, so I think there's still an opportunity to improve it. In terms of the nonprofit sector, so Palo Alto has where we live, a Transportation Management Association. We give out free transit passes to people, low-wage workers in the service sector, and also talk to them how they could get to work instead of driving. This is one of my favorite stories too, artistic upcycling and salvage. So everyone's heard of St. Vincents de Paul, right, the thrift store? Up in Lane County, Oregon, they hired a full-time fashion designer to come work in their store. And meet your Chester, keep in mind this thrift store is right down the street from the University of Oregon. That's a key part of the story. The first week working at St. Vincent de Paul, she started on the donations pile. You know, there's just a river of stuff being donated to St. Vincent de Paul. And she pulled out, oh, somebody donated some Western gear. She put that out for sale. Oh, somebody donated military gear. Put that out for sale. Students thought, oh, great, I'm going to wear this to the party on Friday night. But then she noticed a lot of flannel shirts coming in and a lot of hoodie sweatshirts. And she cut the sleeves off both and sewed the flannel sleeves onto the hoodie sweatshirt bodies, put those out for sale. As soon as the students heard about those, they sold out like that. She made another batch, put them out, they sold out like that. I don't know about some of you, but tote bags are never big enough for me. She would take leather love seats that had come in, that had been donated, that had rips or stains in them, and she'd cut them up and sew tote bags, big tote bags. They sold out. She was looking for creative ways to upcycle some of the river of stuff that was coming in. I'd like to see every graduate of a fashion degree go spend a year in a thrift store to see what they can upcycle for us. We need this kind of creative minds to think about the possibilities. The other interesting example here is wildlife defense. Does anybody know what percentage of wildlife we've lost since 1970? has just disappeared.
Species?
Total number of animals lost.
90%.
Well, it's 60%, and the latest thing I read was a few months ago now, was like, and we're losing another 2% a year. But with the wildfires in Australia and up here, it feels like it might be faster than that. And then the Amazon and Africa, we're losing wildlife in part because of fires, in part because of habitat encroachment, and in part because ranchers and farmers, when they feel like there's a predator that's encroaching on their herd or what they're trying to grow, they call USDA Wildlife Services and say, can you come take care of the coyote or the wolf or the mountain lion? And what wildlife services contractors do is come and kill it. So wildlife defense, there's some really cool nonprofits out there. There's People and Carnivores, there's Predator Defense. And these are nonprofits that go out and talk to the rangers and ask them questions about how it's going and what they're kind of struggling with, what the challenges are. And then mentions, one of your neighbors had this problem with coyotes, and here's how they manage the coyote, the non-lethal methods for managing the coyotes. So carcass management and flea-tree fencing. Flea-tree fencing is the wire, and then they put ribbons on it. The movement scares away creatures. So could we be putting more money into work like that? I think that could be fun work for a certain segment of the population as well. So the book is all about proofs of concept. Here is what's already being done that we'd like to see scaled up. And then public sector jobs needed. Again, I don't think most of this is going to happen unless government leads it and funds it. A few years ago, our family was in Europe, and we took a grand tour with our teenage son. We were in Copenhagen, Berlin, Paris, northern Spain, and Madrid. And in every city we were in, one day we rented bicycles and just biked around the city all day. Oh man, I gotta tell you, protected bike lanes everywhere. I mean, not even green stripes or white stripes on the road, but like concrete barriers that are 6 inches that keep distracted drivers from accidentally running into cyclists everywhere. Wish we had more of that here. I'd love to see every town have a tool lending library with a repair cafe and maker spaces. When our son was very mechanically minded, he's getting his degree in mechanical engineering now. He would have loved to go to a repair cafe and sit down with someone who knows how to fix vacuum cleaners and learn from that, interact with that person to learn more about how vacuum cleaners work and all the parts and learn how to fix it. Wouldn't that be cool to have different generations interact over something where someone's teaching and someone's learning? Wouldn't it be nice to have tool lending libraries in every community, so instead of buying the same 100 tools that sit in the garage unused most of the time, you could just go borrow what you need. Maybe you only are going to use it once, but then it's not sitting in your garage. It's somewhere you can return it so someone else can use it. I know my husband likes buying tools, but...
She's talking about me.
So, as I was writing this book, I kept thinking, the private sector can do so much, but what do we need government to do? What will only government do to make these green jobs happen? And it seemed to me there were really 3 vital roles. One is setting goals. And I'm so proud to be in California where we have set ambitious greenhouse gas reduction goals through AB 32 and subsequent legislation. So setting goals, developing ordinances like the City of Portland did for the Deconstruction Ordinance. But most importantly, where's the funding going to come from to create some of these green jobs? And that's where government can step in and say, private business, it's great that you're internalizing profits and externalizing costs, but you know what? Externalizing those costs in society is hurting the environment or it's hurting people. So we want to discourage that behavior, and we're going to levy an externality fee on the thing you're doing, like burning 10,000 tons a year of fossil fuels that are causing climate change. So we created cap and trade in California. We have an externality fee on plastic bags. We created bottle gold deposits years ago that has increased the recycling rates in states with bottle gold deposits. So I'd like to see more of this to help fund some of these, particularly government sector jobs that are doing the work that so desperately needs to happen. I want to leave you with one final thought. So this trip we took to Europe 2 years ago, we went to northern Spain to visit a friend of mine who I'd met my semester in Madrid in college. And Esther lives in País Vasco region in the north, in this town called Vitoria-Gasteiz. And it's everything you hope a small city will be. It's got these cobblestone pedestrian-only streets with shops and restaurants where every night everybody comes out onto the street and sees their friends. Oh, how you doing? How are the grandkids? And it's just such a lovely place. We had so much fun there with Esther and her husband and her daughters. And at one point Esther said, Justine, we want to take you on a tour of the Gothic cathedral in our town. It's really the pride and joy of Victoria.